we're going to start with the building blocks. And those of you who went to the first session, I know that there was conversation about the mission. I want to talk to you about vision. I want to talk to you about the absolute fundamental, basic piece of, not only is it basic to fundraising, it's basic to being a leader. It's basic to running a good organization, to have a powerful, outward-looking, societal-changing, big picture vision that can be accomplished in the next 3 to 5 years. Vision isn't, we want to change our portfolio balance so that we don't have as much money because, the government's cutting back and we're really struggling, and so we want to have people give us money, so that's my vision. Vision isn't, we want to be bigger. Vision isn't, we want to have an endowment. Vision is about the community. It's about societal return on investment. And the thing that's important in this is that, and this was based on a recent study, a 2010 or late 2009 study, where they looked at people's point of view. And people who tend to have less money in general, although everything is, there's no cut and dry in any of this. But in general, people who tend to earn less money tend to have the point of view as, I want to save a life. I want to change one life. I want to change one family. I want to provide that family with a shelter. I want that family to be fed. And we raise smaller dollars from that perspective. But you guys are doing so much more than feeding and sheltering individual families. Right? You are changing. You are making sure that children go to school with everything they need so that they're not hungry and their brains are developed the way it's supposed to, and they have the food that they need. You're protecting people from terrible circumstances and making sure that they have shelter that has an impact on the economy, on the way people perceive our community. You have societal return on investment. That's the way you need to talk about your organization. What are you going to change in the next 3 to 5 years? I can love your mission, and any size gift will make me feel good. Any size gift. Gosh, I love your mission. Here's $1. I feel great. Here's $1,000. I feel great. But vision is time specific. It says, we can make this happen in the next 5 years. We can make this happen. It attracts great board members. It attracts great donors. It gets your staff excited. This is a mission of passion. I know that folks that are in this, that you're passionate about it. It allows people to have their passion focused. We're going to get there. That's where we're going to be in the next 3 to 5 years. This is as fundamental and as powerful as anything that you can do, because it gets people excited. It gets people to want to invest time, money, energy in a big way. Vision isn't an elevator speech. It isn't a catchphrase. It isn't the thing that just goes up on your website, with a two-line. It's not marketing. It is a conversation about the issues that you are trying to solve, the things you are trying to do. What impact do you think we could have on this problem if we actually achieve our vision? You've also noticed there's a piece there about value statements. Why do you think that's there? So mission, you totally know. Vision, we've got. Why is a value, what the heck is a value statement, and why do I care, and why should you care? And the reason that values are so important is that donors today, so before the recession, even before Detroit's recession, which was even longer, people were deciding more and more, there was a huge trend in giving, that they were narrowing their list. When Penelope Burke did her research on donor motivation, she found that most Americans had 20 to 30 charities that they cared about. But if she did it today, that list would be very different, I think. That number would be different. Because people had begun, even before the recession, to narrow their list. Does anyone know why? Anyone have any idea why? Why were people saying, you know what, I don't want to give to 20 different organizations. I think I want to concentrate. Yeah.
I would think you only have so many resources and you want to make an impact, and if you spread it out too much, you're not making an impact.
That was the reason. People wanted to have an impact. People were realizing. I was one of those people. Anybody who asked me for money got $10, $25. I would just give to any. You called me up, I would spend a little time telling you how you could do it better, you know, do a little educating, you know, like, gosh, are you a volunteer? Who prepped you, darling? You know, but I would still send that $25 check. And then Bob and I decided, you know what, we want to make a difference. And we need to pool that money. Then the recession hit. And again, people said, well, I'm going to have to narrow my list because I want to have an impact, and there is less. And the need is greater. And so what a lot of folks said is, I am going to try to align my giving with my values. But if we never tell people what our values are, how do they know so they're just making decisions and assumptions about you. So you want to put on your piece of paper, you know, do I have a good value statement? If I asked your staff, would everybody say the same thing you said? And then finally, that you do have a good strategic plan for how you're going to get there. I am not going to invest huge dollars in your organization just on your vision if I think it's too pie in the sky. You know? So what a strategic plan does is it gives you the critical path for getting there. So those are the basic building blocks of good organization management and great fundraising, both of those things. The second building block that is so powerful and so important is achieving a culture of philanthropy and stewardship within your organization. And I want you to imagine it's 3 years from now, and you've invited me back. I haven't seen you in 3 years. And I say to you, you know, we talked about everybody understanding, embracing, believing in, and acting on his or her role within the organization. Every volunteer, every board member, every staff member, program person, everybody, CFO, they all get that philanthropy is part of their job, part of their responsibility. And please know that I am not talking about asking for money. Asking for money is one sentence. I'd like you to consider a philanthropic investment of blank. Anybody can do that. We don't need everybody doing that. It's everything that comes before that that we need people to be involved in. We need people involved in sharing the mission and sharing the story. We need people involved in inviting people into the family. Right, there's so many people engaging people. There's so many parts of getting folks involved that we need everybody to do. Philanthropy is about giving and about the business of. You know, we live in a very, very untrusting world, unfortunately. I've looked at many studies over the years about what percentage of the donor population of this incredibly philanthropic country actually thinks we're doing a good job with their money. The worst number I saw was only 10%. This is not random people. These are donors. Only 10%. The highest percentage I saw was 30%. So you might say, oh, well, that's true for other people's donors, but not my donors. But yeah, there was no group, even faith-based donors were no higher than 30%. And yet they gave anyway. But think how much more they would give if they trusted us. And they don't trust us for lots and lots and lots of reasons. You know, some of the reasons that they don't trust us is because of mistakes, right? Embarrassing things happen. This is a great book, by the way. This is Covey's eldest son who wrote this book, and his premise is that when there's trust, things are faster and you make more money. And he parsed the difference between being trustworthy and trusted. So trustworthiness is a function of character. You do manage the money prudently. You are honest. You don't lie. You don't steal. You're good people. But I might not trust you, even if you're all of those things, because I don't hear back from you, because you're not transparent, because I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to give you an example of the absolute most perfect. I'm going to give you two examples of two wonderful, wonderful stewardship examples that have every aspect of stewardship: managing the money well, reporting back, telling me about impact. All right, so here's the story. So I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, at an AFP conference, and a fundraising professionals conference. And Susan Evans, the VP of Kids in Distress, which is an organization that rescues abused children, sexually abused and physically abused. And so they rescue these kids. They bring them to their campus. They have a physical campus. They provide them with therapy, and then they find them with safe homes. And they were in a building campaign. They were trying to expand their campus. And so Susan came up to me at the end of the conference, and she said, "Karen, would you give me 30 minutes, just 30 minutes of your time? I'm literally 5 minutes away. I would like to tour you through our facility, and then any advice you could give me, any advice at all that you would be willing to give me for free, would be so appreciative." But the cause was close to my heart, so I said, absolutely. I had time. I will go and tour. I go tour this facility. I remember it's a building campaign. I tour this facility, and my heart is, at the end of it, oh my goodness, I'm weeping, I'm weeping. I write a $1,000 check on the spot, one time only. This is a one-time only gift, Susan. It's just that I've been really moved, but I have to go back to New York. So, okay, I don't live here. Bye, love you. I fly home. Of course, I got to thank you right away. But within 24 hours, right? You thank every donor within 24 to 48 hours. Make a note of that on your sheet. If you are taking your time to thank donors, you're not picking up the phone and calling people as the check lands. We're missing a huge, huge opportunity. So they thanked me right away, which was great. I'm still not giving any more money. I get their newsletter. It's moving. I'm not giving any more money. 8 months later, before the next solicitation, they get hit by 4 hurricanes. So I got an email from Kids in Distress, and I did open it. What do you think I was expecting? They got hit by 4 hurricanes. Ask for money. That was what I was expecting. They're in trouble. The kids are in trouble. I'll at least open the email. Now here's what the email said. "Dear Karen, I wanted you to know that your building stood. I wanted you to know that your generator worked. The kids had light. And I wanted you to know that your kids are safe. Thank you again for all you do for kids in distress. We hope you're safe too. Please let us know." Signed, Tom, CEO. What was fabulous about that email? Why am I sharing that with you? Number one, it made me feel good. I have probably told that story now 150 times, and I still give myself goosebumps. It makes you feel good. What else? What else was fabulous about that?
They made it feel that was Kids in Distress was yours.
Exactly. Your kids, your building, your generator, right? How can you not help your kids? Excellent. What else?
Well, they personalized it, and they didn't ask for money.
They personalized it, and they surprised me, didn't they? They did not ask me for a dime. A couple of other things that was really important here.
They communicated back to you the impact that your donation had had.
Exactly. They first spoke about the stuff. The building stood. That's the stuff we sell. Then they talked about the outputs. The generator came on. The children were not in the dark. Can you think about anything more terrifying for an abused child than to be in a storm in the dark, away from home? And then they did the perfect thing. They reported back on the impact. Because why did I give that money in the first place? Not because they're having a darn building campaign. I wanted the kids to be safe, right? So what happened? I wrote a check. Donor for life, right? They raised more money with that non-solicitation than they have raised with any solicitation before or since. The money poured in. Because the other thing that they did is they said, how are you? We hope you're safe too. Can we hear from you? People called up, told them their stories. Oh yes, the hurricane has been just crazy. And how are the kids? And what can I do? And the money poured in. Stewardship is powerful. I can't think of anything that you could do that would be more important than looking at your volunteers, looking at your donors, and saying, when is the last time I made them say, wow? When is the last time that I made them feel the way that Karen felt when she got that email? You can raise a lot of money doing great stewardship and getting people to trust you as well as therefore give. And the power of why can't be overdone. Here we go. Collaboration, you know what that means. Donor-centric, it means looking at things from the eyes of your donor. Looking at it from your donor's point of view, not looking at it from your point of view out. Looking at things from their point of view. And I just do want to say a word about language. Those of you who are just getting started, you don't have these bad habits. Those of you that have been doing this for a while, you may have these bad habits. But I have to tell you, as a donor, I do not want to be your prospect. I don't want to be your target. And I certainly don't want to be your low-hanging fruit. I mean, how awful, right? Isn't that like the most awful? Oh, let's get the low-hanging fruit. This is about people investing. This is about people caring. Let's make sure our language reflects the good people that we are. You know, one of the things that's so a powerful role that board members and volunteers can play is they are such a credible voice to donors. So, right, to the government officials who fund you, to the politician who fought for you, for the foundation that helped teach you and provide this service that you have today, for the people and the foundations that invested in you. What a powerful thing to have a board member or a volunteer go on a stewardship visit. Every CEO should be walking the walk and walking the talk by starting with, if I expect other people to invest in this organization, I need to be an investor as well. Some of the poorest people I know are some of the most generous people I know. It's not about the size of gift, but it also isn't true that any size gift is okay. Right? Because any size gift is not necessarily a generous gift. So it is about, can I look myself in the mirror and say, I am a generous donor. I give generously. That's the message you want. So again, it's not the size, it's the impact on you. Is that a stretch gift for me? Am I doing something that matters? So when people say to you, oh, it's just, participation, any size gift, whatever you can give, that's not really the message you want to give. You just want to give is that everybody is equal, everyone is equal if we're all equally generous. And what generous is for you is different from what generous is for me, but we are equal because I am giving as generously as you, even though you have a lot more money than I do, right? So you want to make sure that our CEOs are modeling that behavior, and given my little tiny salary and my budget, this is a generous investment for me. We're going to shift now to another important aspect of your program, and that is the why should I give more, the case for support. 65% of donors go to our websites today before deciding whether or not to make a philanthropic investment, whether it's offline or online. They hear about us and they jump. because that's the age we're in. People hear about us and they jump to our website to see what we're doing. And so I think that we need to educate our donors that it is more about results and impact. That's what they want to know. How are we measuring our impact as opposed to, as we try to parse, what percentage of the CEO's time goes to program and what percentage is spent on fundraising and how, and I know the government asks that of us all the time. I know a lot of foundations are starting to trying to change that dialogue so that we have come up with the way we measure ourselves. And so I think that the more you put out there how you measure the impact of your mission, the less people are going to bug us about, what overhead is and isn't, because they're going to see that you've got really good metrics and you're holding to those metrics in a really good way. You want people to see the faces, right? What is really going on? Here's how you can make a difference. These are the people whose lives we're touching. Their stories are powerful. People don't want to be wanted just for their money. I've not met anybody. The wealthiest person I know, I've never met anybody who just wants to be wanted for their contacts and money. What else do you need from me? How can I be involved? How can I have an impact? Hunger and homelessness, those are things that we need people advocating about. We need people, on that whole advocacy side, it's getting the message out. Can I do that from your website? Can I download a letter and send it to my congressman? Is there something that I can actively do that would make an impact on your mission and vision? Recognition, having donor stories next to impact stories is a great thing. Here's somebody, there was one of the Michigan websites I saw, it was feeding pregnant moms, making sure that pregnant moms had the nutrition they needed so that they would give birth to healthy children, so that those healthy children, right, societal impact. What a powerful thing it would have been to have one voice of a donor right next to that saying, this is why this was so important for me to do. That I love that I'm doing this. Again, it just delivers a really good message. You should go on your websites as a donor. Go on your website with the eyes of a donor. Ask some of your volunteers to go on your website and look at it from a donor perspective, and then have a conversation about, are we saying the right things? Are we putting the right things up? And do you have different ways for me to get involved right online? Is there a micro-documentary on there, a little 2-minute story? Is there a place that I can download something and take action? Is there an invitation for me to come to something? How interactive is your website, and how static is that website? We also have to make sure that we're telling donors why I should give more. Why should I move from a $1,000 donor to a $2,500 donor? Why should I move from a $100 donor to a $200 donor? You've got to give, and it can't just be, you'd help more people. Well, if you give another 1,000, you'd help even more people. I think I'm helping enough people. I'm okay with where I am. It's got to be what impact can I have that's different at $1,000 from $2,500? What difference would I make from 500 to 1,000? Why should I move up? Why should I increase? And so on your score sheet, do I make a case? And here's a great engagement opportunity. Here's a wonderful thing for volunteers to help you with. Help us brainstorm that story. What would inspire you? You know us. You know us so well. What would inspire you to go to $1,000? What would you want to hear? Here's something we thought. What do you think about it? Number one, you'll get better feedback and you'll get great ideas. But of course, you're also raising that person's sights. You're getting them to think about, maybe I could be one of those people that goes up. So on your sheet, do I have a good case for support, and do I have a good case for increasing? Major gifts, do I have big ideas? Do I have great big ideas that people need to fund? And it doesn't have to be all physical plant. You know, I think sometimes we think that people only give big gifts to physical plant, and actually just the opposite is true. People give to programs. People give to big ideas. There was a donor. He'd been on this board for 20 years in Boston. He'd been on this board for 20 years, and he was absolutely the best friend the CEO ever had. Every time John was in trouble, he could go to this donor and say, would you help me out? We're going to be short $25,000 on our budget this year. You know, do you think you could? Yes, he would put that 25 in. You know, we've got this little opportunity, and I just need $10,000. Yes, here's the $10,000. 20 years of friendship. John opens the paper, and he sees that his friend of 20 years made not one, but $2 million gifts to 2 other organizations in the community. So John is devastated. But he does just what you would have done. He goes to visit the donor, and the first thing he says to him is, congratulations. What a beautiful thing you did, and thank you for investing in the community. That's what you would have said first, right? Yes? And thank you so much for the investment that you made in the community. He said, but may I ask you a question? And the donor said, of course, you can ask me anything, John. He said, I just want to know, where on your list of philanthropies are we? Which is a fabulous question, and a question you want to know on a first date. So anyway, John says, the donor says to John, you know the answer to that question. You know that, John. You know you're my number one. You know I love you best. So now John is really, really confused. And so he says, I don't want to sound ungrateful because I'm so appreciative of everything you've ever done for us. We value you so much, but I don't understand why them and not us. And he said, because you never gave me $1 million idea. He didn't say because you didn't ask me for $1 million. He didn't say because you didn't have $1 million naming opportunity for me to take advantage of. He said you never gave me $1 million idea. If you want to secure a $50,000 gift, do you have a $50,000 idea? If you want to secure a $25,000 gift, do you have a $25,000 idea? Do you have a $100,000 idea? Or is it just kind of your shopping list of stuff that you want people to buy, as opposed to invest in a big idea that's going to make something happen? How are you doing on the why should I give more? And as you think about your team, can they tell the story passionately? Is every member, if I walked up to the person who is at the front desk, if I spoke to the person who is your finance, who handles your finance, if I spoke to any board member, if I spoke to any volunteer, could they tell the story passionately, consistently? This is the basic management. This is not the donor cycle. This is the management cycle of a good development operation. So we've already talked about the why, right? We have to start with the why. Mission, vision, strategic plan, case for support, big ideas, right? The next most important thing is, who am I going to ask for money? Do I have enough people? Do I know anybody? How am I going to raise this money when I don't have anybody to ask? You know, am I going to just send out a bunch of letters? And am I going to buy a list? What am I going to do? How am I? And if I'm already a sophisticated operation, do I know how many donors I need to achieve my vision in 5 years? How many donors do I actually need, and how many do I have? It takes about, on average, 3 to 4 donors for every gift, because you're going to get some no's, you're going to get some less than, you're going to get some not nows, right? So do I know 800 potential donors? Do I know 500 potential donors, 300 potential donors that I could engage and see if they want to make an investment? So filling this pipeline is second after we do all of that stuff up there, is fill that pipeline is really, really important. So let's look at some ways. So this is an old-fashioned tool, but it still works. This is, if you don't have a table of gifts, So if you're a just getting started organization, you need to start with a table of gifts, name by name table of gifts. Who are these people? Who do I need? Who do I know? What are their names? What corporations, what foundations, what individuals? A good basic table of gifts that reflects the size and the amount of money that you need. If you're a sophisticated operation, then your table is just going to be bigger, right? The top number is going to be, but you still need this tool. If you're just getting started, you need it with the money. The money might be less. It might be down, well below the 10,000. It's just zeros. It's just zeros. The concept is the same, and it is as fundamental a tool. It was important when I got started 33 years ago, and it still is as basic and as good a tool as you could possibly use. So knowing what your goal is for how many donors I need to find is critically important. And then we need strategies for filling that pipeline. So one of the strategies we already talked about is the notion of vision meetings. You can get lots and lots of new folks in 90-minute sessions. Getting people to host at their offices, at their homes, at their clubs, to host a small gathering, to invite people in, not to pitch them, but to have a conversation about the issues. Right? What are other ways? How are we going to find the people we need? And you already have an amazing pipeline that I bet you're not tapping. Our current donors, best donor for the next gift is a donor that already exists. What are we doing for them? And make sure that we're putting them in the right place in our table of gifts based on their capacity to give. Where else is there an existing pipeline for you? Volunteers. You have got an army of amazing people who are doing amazing work. We were chatting in the bathroom just 15 minutes ago, as ladies will do. And Sue was saying that she had been uncomfortable with the thought of asking volunteers. They give so many hours. They give so much of their heart and their time. And, how could I possibly ask them? And so a colleague said to her, he said, well, do you go to church every Sunday? And she said, oh, yeah, of course, I do. And he said, and do you volunteer at the church? Oh, absolutely. She says, and when they pass the plate, do you put money in? She says, well, of course. Have I not just made my case? That it is actually a privilege to be a donor, and we are denying people the joy and the privilege of being an investor in your organization. And once you've experienced the joy of giving, there's no going back. There's absolutely no going back. It's such an amazing and good feeling to know that you're changing somebody's life. And being a volunteer, your volunteers know you well. So finding a way there's a pipeline of folks that you can begin thinking about how you will ask them. I don't mean just send everybody out a letter and solicit them. I mean, you should have a strategy around it. But how are you going to do that? How are you going to start placing them in your table of gifts? And how are you going to start getting the word out about the joy of giving and the joy of generosity, and then bringing them into the fold? You already have a pipeline. Okay, so we're going to have vision meetings. We're going to look at our volunteers. How else can we fill that pipeline?
Family and extended family.
Family and extended family. Networks. People know people. People know so many, many people. And so you just have to keep pulling your network out. What are the networks? Who do I know? I had one young man say to me in one of these sessions, he said, you know what, Karen, I actually put together what I call my social capital kind of graph. He says, and I write down everybody that we know, everybody that, he says, it's not about money. He said, it's not my table of gifts. It's my who knows who. It's my influence table. It's who has networks, who might know somebody who could help us. Maybe they could help us get in the newspaper. Maybe they could help us with a politician. Maybe they could help us. He said, I think about it as broadly as I can, and then I work that network. Because in that network are people who can help us, and there are people who can give to us. So but it does take being conscious and thoughtful and saying, I need to fill this pipeline because I won't be successful if I don't get that done. That is actually the thing that kills most fundraising. You just darn ran out of people. Okay, so please look at this beautiful, beautiful chart. Isn't this a beautiful thing? What's the difference between engagement and involvement? Because that's really where the bump happens, at engagement, whereas this axis is involvement. You can be involved in this group and not engaged in this conversation. You could be sitting there, you came, you got your notes, but you got your BlackBerry under the table, and you're jumping up and running and answering your phone, and you're not really engaged. You're not thinking, you're not keeping your list, but you're involved. I could be a board member. You know them. They come to your board meetings, and they sit, and they're totally unengaged. They just show up. Right? Engagement is two-way. There is a think, feel, do component in engagement. There is something you want, that you want my brain for something. There's passion and emotion involved, and there's an action I have to take. So, for example, if you bring me on a tour to see your facility, and you talk at me through the whole tour, am I engaged? No. I am simply passively listening. There might be emotion there, but there's no thinking, there's no doing. But what if you said to me at the beginning of the tour, Karen, we'd love for you to see what we are doing. And at the end of this tour, I would really like to hear your thoughts about what you saw, what you felt about what you saw, how we might get others to come see it, how we might do this better. Can I count on you to do that? It's only going to be about 20 minutes. Really want to talk to you on the other side. Oh, there's going to be a test. I better pay attention, right? So now at least you've got me alert. Now I'm walking along, but you want me engaged. You want me trying something, talking to somebody, doing something, having some action. And then at the end, what did you think? First, you want to think, who do I have? And we don't jump right to let's solicit them. It's who do I have? How do I get them engaged? Then how do I ask them for money? Because engagement is going to get you the most money. And if you can only engage a small portion of your, you only have time and energy, you're just getting started, right? Pick the right folks, focus on them. And everybody else, we're just going to, we'll just ask them for money, do the best we can. If you have a little bit more time, you're in the middle trying to get to best practice, make that list deeper. And if you are a sophisticated operation doing good major gift work, it's one by one. How am I engaging people? How am I maximizing this? What ways do I have to engage people? That's think, feel, do. Engagement is the key. It can't be, hello, how are you? Give us money. And then this is the basic donor cycle that you are moving people through. And most of you have seen this in some variation. The thing that I want you to notice is how small the asking is one thing on this whole cycle. Right? It's just that one thing. And the thing I want to highlight on that is the importance of asking for a specific amount. Asking should not be done apologetically. It should be done with confidence and because you're giving somebody an opportunity to do something good. Right? And to the degree that you can say, please join me, that's a powerful message. We're going to talk about boards now. I think that we do a poor job of recruiting board members. I think that the way it happens for most of us is board member Karen says to you, I know a good guy. I know a really good person. They could be on the board. I'll talk to them for you. I'll talk to that really good person for you, and we'll We'll bring them on. Well, okay, but I think, says the CEO, I think I should really meet that person for. Oh, sure. No, let's have a lunch. We'll have a lunch. You can meet them. Board member Karen goes off, talks to a friend. We want you to be on the board, and the CEO wants to meet you. We go have lunch. The CEO meets, talks all about the mission. The person asks a couple of questions. And so then the board member says, so good, so you want to be on the board, right? Okay, great. So we're good? Okay, great. Person comes on the board. Person doesn't introduce us to any of the people that they know because they're on 5 other boards and they're using their network for those 5 other people, those 5 other organizations. We ask the person for money. No, I give my time. I don't give money. We ask the person to, come to events. I'm too busy. I'm on all these other boards. I don't have time. Oh, darn. Didn't work out. But now I've got them on the board for at least 3 years. What am I going to do? This is so crazy. Or, and I don't know if this is true for anybody in this room, and if you hear me describe you, please know I'm doing it with love. Well, we are a working board, and we get high-powered rich people on our board. They'll order us around. They won't roll up their sleeves and work. So we don't want any high-powered rich people on our board because, we're a working board. We're a community board, and then there'll be no room for me, and those people will just, just throw their money around. And I just want to say we should not be prejudiced against rich people. There is nothing wrong. So don't find a rich person who throws their money around and pushes. I know poor people that do that, right? I know poor people that make terrible board members that think they know everything and lord it over everything and talk too much. And right? There is no, rich people are bad and poor people are good. Some of the best board members I know were high-powered, successful people who rolled up their sleeves and worked as hard as the next person. You are looking for people who are going to love your mission. You are looking for people who get that their job is to share their network, share their influence. You are looking for people who have generous spirits and get the notion of generosity. And we want, and now this is a crazy thought. This is really crazy. But maybe we should engage them first, ask them for money first, and then invite them on our board. Wouldn't that be something? If we had a board of donors already, instead of putting them on and, I hope this works out, I hope this works out, I hope this works out. Oops, didn't work out. Right? We need a board of donors. We need to identify people. And I would say to you that this has been a great, great tool. This has been, for years I thought about criteria as for everybody, and I started thinking about it in groups. What qualities do you want 100% of your board members to have? And I'll just give you an example, like integrity, right? You would want 100% of your board members to be ethical people with integrity. What are those other qualities? Then, what are those qualities that 40 to 60% of my board members might need? What are those? I'll give you an example of that. Maybe it's, we need a good portion of them to be good strategic thinkers. And then the last category is kind of, do I need a lawyer? Do I need a contractor? Do we have enough people from the right community? Now, I want to say a word about diversity here. And I can say this. It is insulting, downright insulting, when you invite somebody on to represent a group and have no expectation that they will do what everybody else is doing. It's insulting. Well, the reason Karen's on is because she's an African-American woman. So no, we don't expect her to meet our other criteria because we need diversity. What? You can't find a generous, smart, strategic thinking African-American woman? Yes, you can. Absolutely. So diversity isn't a reason to make an exception. We're not talking about having a board that's all the same, just all rich people or all anything. There can be diversity. There can be, but what is it that we do want them to be 100% of? I don't need 100% of my board to be people that have financial capacity, but I need some percentage of that board. It might be as little as 40%. It might be as high as 60%. But you need to have some percentage of your board that has the financial wherewithal to personally give you a significant gift. And again, I don't mean to offend anybody, but I leave, so I can just say these things. I just want to say that $1,000 is not a lot of money. $1,000 is dinner out once a month. Depending on where you live, it might be dinner out for 4 people once a month. In New York, it's dinner out for 1. But it's still dinner out once a month. $1,000 is a latte a day. So we have to be ambitious for our mission. We can't go out thinking that this is, oh my goodness, so much money. We can't go out thinking, I could never, ever, ever expect anybody to do this because, oh my goodness, that's so much money. We have to go out saying the people we serve deserve a high-performing board. The people we serve deserve people who have the ability and are willing. And yes, we need diversity, and yes, we need all of those things that you said, but we need some percentage that have the ability to make significant gifts to your organization so that you can do your work, so that you can go out and change and save lives. Before I invite people on my board, one of the questions that I always ask is, tell me about the best gift you've ever given, the one that fills your heart with the most joy. How did that gift come about, and why did you do it? And you'll know by asking the right questions in advance, is this a person who gets what it means to be significant? Is this person who gets, I love the generosity question. I ask people, I say, as you think about the word generosity, what comes to mind for you? How did you learn to be generous? How did you teach your children or your nieces and nephews or your grandkids or your neighbors? How did you share the notion of generosity? You will learn so much so that you will end up with somebody on the board who gets it. And if you already have a board of non-givers and of non-generous people, it really only takes about 3 new people to change the tone. And so it's not you asking, I always ask, are you trying to get the right people to do the right thing, or are you trying to get the wrong people to do the right thing? And you don't want to put a whole lot of energy on trying to get the wrong people to do the right thing. You want to bring on some good people who will change the dialogue, change the way things, and 3 people can tip the scales pretty easily. And women drive philanthropy in America. Just saying. There's a lot of proof of that. Not that we don't love guys. We do. Okay. So I do want you to take a hard look at your board against the criteria. Take a hard look at your board, name by name. Not that these aren't good people. Not that you don't want to keep them. But what is it that I need to do to change this mix? And how are we going to deliberately find people? How are we going to get this criteria adopted? How are we going to really change this mix? Which is very doable. It's doable within 2 years. You can change a board from a low performer to a high performer in 2 years or less. I want to make sure that you're following the money. Most money in America comes from individuals, right? So as you look at your pie and what you're chasing, corporations are 5% of that 300 plus billion. Foundations are 10% of that 300 plus billion. Individuals are 85%. Follow the money. Look at your portfolio balance. The return on investment for major gifts is huge compared to the return on investment for special events, for example. Look at your portfolio again. Am I putting all my energy into running a whole bunch of little events that raise very little money and take up all my time? Or am I strategically doing a couple of events and then putting my money in high-end annual fund and in major gift work? Follow the money. Take a look at your portfolio balance and see where you are. Not anti-special events. I am pro you using all of the resources that you have and you putting the right resources in the right place. Right? Multi-channels, people give more when you give them lots of ways to give. So the more ways you give people to give, the more money you will raise. So don't forget about, even though online is like, so don't think that online is the solution. You know, we just get a whole lot of online giving. It is growing, but it is such a small percentage of the pie. Face-to-face is the coin of the realm. Going out and looking people in the eye and asking them to join you is still the most powerful way to raise money. Are you doing enough of that? You want to make sure that you have some good metrics, that you're looking at what your metrics are. Do you all know what wealth screening is? You know, it's a great way to look at your pipeline and see where the money might be. There are organizations, as a donor, this always makes me queasy, but it's all ethical and perfectly legitimate thing to do. You run your list against their list, and they tell you who among your pipeline has the ability to give you real money. And they give you back good information. And it's an expense, but it's one of those expenses that can jumpstart your program. I just want to end with a quick thought. When I was a vice president at Trinity College, I had been gone for about a year. And there had been a donor that I worked with for 5 years. Don was a good man, and he was an entrepreneur that bought companies and sold companies. And all those 5 years, he was a $3,000 donor to Trinity. And he kept saying to me one day, Karen, if I make it big, Trinity will make it big. And so I kept him involved, I kept him engaged, I worked with him those 5 years, and at the end of the time, he was still a $3,000 donor. I left, and now a year later, I get a call from Don. And Don calls me up and says, Karen, would you and Bob come and meet Barbara and me at the restaurant in Manhattan for brunch? And I said, sure, well, what's going on? He says, no, I'll tell you when you come. So Bob and I go down to have brunch, and the first thing I noticed when I walked in was that Barbara was wearing a diamond and gold choker, gala level. I mean, you know, like it was 11 o'clock in the morning. This was brunch, and she's wearing this, you know, bling. So, right? So I sit down, and we're chit-chat, catching up on family, blah, blah, blah. And then Don says, Karen, I know you were wondering why I asked you down. I said, yes, I am wondering. He said, I called you down to say thank you. He said, I sold my company. I made my first $1 million gift to Trinity. And this never would have happened if you hadn't engaged me, kept me close to the institution, given me this opportunity. So I want to thank you as the development person for helping me do this. And Barbara said, Trinity got $1 million, and I got this. Somebody's going to thank you. Somebody is going to thank you. Remember that. All right. We're good to go.